Hello, everyone, and such a pleasure to come to the Hong Kong Chinese University, and it's so good to see some old friends, Professor Lam, that we haven't met for more than 10 years, and also get together with Professor Xu and Professor Tai, and also I also have my board member, Dr. Hu, here. So such a pleasure to get together. And today I want to share about how, about some of our efforts made in China to use tap into the data and digital solutions to try to speed up the decarbonization work. The backdrop is the increasing frequency of extreme weather events. Climate change has been getting increasingly more intensified. Heat waves, droughts, and wildfire and flooding happened all over the world, and not just rising global air temperature, but also the ocean temperature. It's way off chart and raising a lot of concerns from the Earth scientists. And as mentioned by the earlier guests, that we do have significant gap to achieve the target. If we want to achieve the target set by the Paris Agreement, there's massive gaps there, and basically, the carbon budget will be consumed within 5 to 6 years, and which means that Paris Agreement target 1.5 degree Celsius target will be out of reach within a few years, and to even a 2 degree target will be in great jeopardy. So that is the hard reality, and now Trump coming back and decided to threaten to withdraw again from Paris Agreement. So we can underestimate all this significant impact on the global climate governance. And so how can we really find the speed and scale which is needed for us to continue to hold Paris Agreement target possible. And we suggest that we can tap into the experience in China to clean up our air and water in just more than 10 years of time, starting from massive monitoring and disclosure, transparency, and raising public awareness, and helping the government strengthen enforcement and empower public oversight. But most important, I think, to enable market to function in a way to support instead of hurting the environment. It enable the market to function to support environmental protection. And we used to have very low cost of violations, but that has been very much changed. But the starting point is the massive, all this measuring and disclosure. We believe that China used to suffer from such a severe air, water, and soil pollution and coastal sea pollution. And behind that, there's a very complex reasons. We believe issues of such a magnitude and complexity cannot be resolved without extensive participation. And the starting point got to be access to information. So 2006, we set up the Blue Map database and started to compile the air, water, and data, starting from water and then extended to air, soil, and coastal sea. And through the process, I've witnessed an historic progress made in China's environmental transparency. At the beginning, only only daily average of the limited parameters on air, a couple of hundred annual data on water. But today, we're talking about thousands upon thousands of monitoring stations every hour giving the data on air. And on the water side, more than 10,000 monitoring stations across the country. And on the corporate side, started with only 2,000 records of penalty fines and violation records. And today, the progress made has allows an NGO like us to track the performance. We're talking about nearly 20 million corporations operating in China, and based on all the data we can compile to track their performance, and also color code them based on the performances, and use that to support enable public supervision and also market-based solutions. The data can be in great granularity, and it's also can be highly dynamic. Every hour, tens of thousands of major emitters need to give people the data and report to the public. On air, it's every hour. On water, it's every 2 hours. And the data has become a unique public resources which support the green supply chain of all the, not just companies, Chinese companies, but multinationals sourcing from China. So from 2014, we launched the first green supply chain CATI index, and so the last 11 years continue to assess the performance and witness the green choice initiative motivated brands to open their doors and open their gates to engage with the communities and to clean up. And one by one, the leading brand decided to incorporate the data we compiled from various sources into their sourcing standards. And so this is extremely important. This helps us, I think, in some way, this helps us to sustain the first Trump administration. At that time, he withdrew from the Paris and dampened the whole global climate governance. But in China, we can see all the major American firms continue to pay attention and continue to motivate change. So I think it's very, very positive. And so from IT to textile industries, and yesterday I met an old friend from Levi's, and he talked about how they through transparency really enhance the management and motivate hundreds of dye houses to change behavior, and from multinationals increasingly to the leading brands from the Greater China region, and some of the leading brands have also become very active, and some of them decided to go even further by putting their logo on the location of the suppliers and put them on the digital map. This is an open. It's a declaration that of the accountability they assume. Extended environmental management. It's not easy because the corporate lawyers usually will have a big question about this. The responsibilities. But of course, this is based on our blue eco chain, meaning that whenever some of this, whenever any of them have problem, then those who pay attention will get a push notification in their inbox or on their cell phone, and then trigger a whole series of follow-up actions to identify the problem, and then all the way, mitigation and then disclosure, and that will help to manage the risks. So all this joint efforts have helped to achieve vast emission reduction. We're talking about sulfur dioxide declining from 20 million tons to 2.4 in 10 years of time. and carbon, nitrogen also be cut by half. As a result, throughout China and throughout major regions, the PM 2.5 concentration declined by about around 56% in 10 years of time. And we can see Beijing's the PM 2.5, which Beijing used to be called smog of the capital, small capital of the world. And but now, it's dropped from nearly 90 to 30 in 2002, and now, this year so far it's about it's below 32, and some rebound, but we still managed to see a lot more blue sky. So this is the speed and scale that we are trying to pursue. And so on the climate side, we believe that there's also possibilities on that to achieve that. But we need to build carbon data infrastructure, just as we build the environmental data infrastructure. So with that thinking, we launched our Blue Map for Zero Carbon project, and so started compiling the data, not just global or national data, but try to drill it deeper into the provinces and cities, and most important, it's drill to the sectors, even to the major emitters, to the facilities, and that's what we hope to achieve. Of course, listed companies is a good starting point, and Hong Kong is a clear leader, among the in not just in this region, but globally, it's a clear leader. Hong Kong Stock Exchange requires for quite comprehensive disclosure of carbon, and we're happy to see that China try to align with the ISSB standards and create new rules, and all the three stock exchanges that have come up with new requirements for sustainability reporting, so the data disclosed, we compiled them into our database. A lot of listed companies have been doing that, and mandatorily for those, and then but we still want to see the facility level data, which we trust that is very, very important. Listed companies is not enough, because sometimes they have dozens or hundreds of sites, and so with that, China's environment and environment ministry have taken the lead to come up with mandatory rules, mandatory disclosure requirements. Now this new measure is put 90,000 on the list. So far, only those who join the carbon market will be required to disclose mandatorily, but many of them, started measuring and reporting voluntarily. So we have seen thousands of them doing that and compile the data. We're talking about more than 3.5 billion tons of carbon being disclosed, and from this year, I think there's even more increasing, even higher recognition for the importance of disclosure, and so the mandate have been transferred to the Ministry of the Environment, and we are honored to have the chance to join the efforts to help draft the guidelines for information disclosure on for corporate greenhouse gas emission. And this has just been passed 2 weeks ago, and this is going to be on the facility level. This will be, provide some standardized way of disclosure for even the small and medium-sized companies. And with data, I think data by itself is important, but just as we need to create an index to assess the performance regions and of corporations. I think on the carbon side, we also need data-driven assessment to create accountability and incentives. And so with that, we work with Chinese Academy of the Environmental Science and also the Climate Strategy Planning Commission to work on the provincial and city level carbon peak and neutrality index and put on the chart to coordinate to try to facilitate more coordinated carbon peak and neutrality because we do trust that we need to create targets for absolute volume targets and distribute them to the regions. But through this assessment, we can see how China, have made such a kind of progress on the renewables, and by the end of June, the 2030 target of 1,200 gigawatts of renewable wind and solar have been achieved, and so far, just last 6 months, another 100 giga have been added. So it's very, very encouraging, and not just centralized carbon. We can see the blue bar, yellow bar, centralized carbon, centralized solar farms, but also the blue ones for decentralized, for the distributed solar, rooftop solars have been installed along the coast, and it's the volume is just eye-boggling, mind-boggling, but through the process, we also recognize that the most difficult would be the scope 3, and along the supply chain, the purchase products and services constitute the main part of the brands. Most of the brands' carbon footprint, and so many brands have made their commitments for net zero financial institutions, but they would not be able to achieve the target without addressing the scope 3. But how much are they actually doing now? So we decided to create an accountability map to track the performance, because now things are going global. We have to also make our data work operations, more like even globally, and so tracking some 2,000 brands, and they do have a large volume of carbon emission. There are overlap there because, of course, with scope 3, there's some overlap there, and so create a corporate climate action index, because CATI, the last 7 years, continue to assess their performance, coming up with scorecards, and we can see that the multinational still, in general, leads the efforts, but we can see some of the major Chinese companies, particularly those who are integrated into the global supply chain, they become also very active and also very successful. And so we can see Luxshare, and so we can see the Avery, and they are all major suppliers. So their performance have become neck and neck with those big brands, and Longi and others. They're also Lenovo. They're also doing quite well. And through the process, we can see for the first time, those who continue to disclose, to measure and disclose their carbon footprint, the suppliers put together have, we have seen a reduction of their total carbon emission. I think that's very encouraging for this year. So which in some way shows that measuring and disclosure can motivate companies to cut their emission, to take and cut their emission. So on the listed companies, we're also continuing to expand our coverage of the listed companies and also assess their performance. COP28, I think, reached consensus on accelerating the low carbon transition and transitioning away from the fossil fuel, and also, the heavy emitting sectors and being highlighted there. And we, one of the concerns I have is, COP29, there's not much follow-up on all these issues, tripling on the renewables, and everyone's just talking about finance. But finance for what? If you don't support the energy transition or the decarbonization of the heavy emitting sectors, then what? So I think that is not enough. And in China, we do want to follow this up, and so we drill deeper into some of the sectors. Iron steel is a major one, and there are some progress made. More than half of them started measure and disclose emissions. This was last year's result, and this year it's even more. A higher percentage of them started measuring not just corporate carbon emission, but product carbon footprint, and setting their target. And for some of the major industries which account for higher and higher proportion of our GDP growth rate, we also pay attention to them, because eventually, we don't want them to become a new source of our emission. And so green products need to be manufactured in a greener way. With that, we have our the guidance under the guidance of MIIT and the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology. We're working to try to assess the performance of them with our partners, for example, on the performance of those of the solar power companies, 31 listed companies. And this year, we also, with the support from Energy Foundation, have conducted our automotive's decarbonization project, and through the supply chain. So basically, selected the 51 local and international automakers, and all of them have some components of EVs. Not all EVs, but some of them have that. And based on the our compiling of the carbon footprint data from all these different companies, we managed to do our assessment, based on the proportion of the carbon, not just the total carbon footprint, but how much iron, steel, and aluminum accounted for, and then come up with the performance review. And we can see that still the international, the foreign auto brands still got higher ranks higher, but we also have some of the Chinese companies like Geely, become more competitive and become more proactive, and they're quickly catching up, some of them. And we can see Chinese automakers lead the transition to EVs. Many started, decided to go 100% on EVs, but we also recognize that EV companies' low carbon supply chain actions and disclosures actually lag behind of the traditional vehicles companies, and there's an insufficient supply chain data remains to be a shared challenge to all of them. And Mercedes-Benz tops our ranking because they do have measuring, they do have some very ambitious target set, but we can also see that actually the carbon intensity and total carbon footprint from the scope 3 is actually going up, and so this is quite this reveals the whole challenge. Even the top performance are like that. So the supply chain, the green supply chain work is too much, just too limited, and not enough to really motivate the upstream suppliers to decarbonize and to cover the premium needed. And so it's quite still a quite big challenge. And last but not least, we trust that we need to go create digital solutions because we can't, there's a recognition that the economy is not in good shape, and extra burden should not be added on that. And we can see all the orange dots are the companies that have pretty big carbon, energy consumption that have now measured and disclosed, and so there's a clear gap there. How to address that? I think tapping to the data, the digitals, the IT technologies is an important one. So working with our partners, the past 5 years, we continue to build our accounting platform, and so many of the brands motivate their suppliers to use the data, the platform to measure and disclose. And this year, particularly the financial institutions decided to use the platform, not just to measure their own branches and thousands of their branches, but also motivate more than 10,000 client companies to use the platform to measure and disclose. And we are helping them to conduct due diligence, to help them check 3 million corporations for a lot of our money. And the carbon footprint management, product carbon footprint have become a new focal point, and due to the new treat requirements, treat rules set up by EU and others, and then so in China, the Ministry of Environment coordinated 15 ministries to come up with the action plan. And the last 4 years, we worked with agencies affiliated with the ministry to build LCA carbon footprint factors database, and now being tapped by many, and working with a whole group of volunteers from experts, third parties, and also create transparency platform to make those carbon footprint already been measured to try to make them more accessible, and helping coordinate with EBDs in Europe and other parts of the world, and also all our own industry associations. They have measured the carbon footprint. We hope that they can disclose so as to scale up the efforts and make it more cost effective. So people can use, consumers, we hope one day can compare, and upstream materials also can be looped into this whole process. Of course, now it's not just carbon. It's not just carbon. Globally, there's a recognition that more planetary boundaries are being bridged, and as we talked about this morning, and so they have to be managed in a more holistic way. Catastrophic decline of the wildlife, the deforestation, and all of this. So this call on the biodiversity is going on, and I sat on the global water commission, and the new report revealed the global water cycles being threatened to be disrupted, and plastic, another major treaty, is under negotiation, and increasingly it's also exacerbate the triple planetary crisis, and those I sat on the global commission on responsible transition mineral, and where China has such a big proportion for all manufacturing of all this renewable products, and our upstream supply chain increasingly have been extended to Africa, to the Southeast Asia, and even Latin America. So we continue to receive more message and even complaints about the efforts operations. So we decided to put them on the digital map, and the satellite imaging can actually reveal a lot of things, because mining is unlike the factory. It's huge, and even from this, we can see which ones having issues, and so we do hope that there are possibilities like that. I think there are massive opportunities for the digital solutions. So all these issues getting increasingly on the global level, and so we're happy to see the brands started motivating those in other parts of the world to come to the to then create participation platforms to allow our users, just like the last more than 10 years, our Blue Map, calendar helped to track the performance of all this air quality and water quality, reporting and improvement. We hope that to help them to understand what's going on the biodiversity side. And this is a new effort made in China, an innovative solution, really deserve more attention. China have divided the territory into 44,000 different function zones, and with all the red lines, allocate 3 million square kilometers to red line zones, and so each zone have different priority, and so we help to put them on the digital map and create services for the banks, and so for the brands before they make investment or choose their own suppliers, and based on that, try to overlap that with the distribution of the species, and eventually, there's a possibility to create a guideline for the disclosure of biodiversity of each to the facility level, and then use this digital platform to facilitate that, to empower them. So I think this is the way to really implement all the green transition finance. Otherwise, how can you really differentiate? How can you really prevent greenwash? Of course, use AI to help our to allow our users to identify species, and they've been doing a lot of this. And then on the waste side, on the garbage sorting side, China has a very ambitious target to build a world-class, top-class garbage sorting system. And the last 3 years, we've been working with Banker Foundation and to create a crowdsourcing program, which our users help to check some 100,000 neighborhoods, and coming up with all the very detailed assessments of this is the map of Beijing, and we can see that a lot of details, and then each one of them have all the, it's based on the pictures taken, and also questionnaires. And so working with our the petrochemical industry association to come up with a suggestion on the building a collaborative post-consumer recyclable system, and also on the carbon side, how could we enhance the awareness of the people? I mean, the air pollution is right in the face. People recognize that carbon is embedded in everything. So to allow our users to take a picture and get a watermark of the embedded carbon, this is a new function, and it's being expanded based following the expansion of our emission factors database and catalog, and also try to help the users understand that even the smallest efforts they made could actually help to cut carbon emission. Some of them only very, very tiny, but we do have 1.4 billion people, and hopefully, if people can be motivated, and change can happen. And so we still trust that just we need the people to gain their awareness and support stronger climate policy, just like 10 years ago, when they give so much support to our clean air and clean water policy. So that's what we're doing, and I stop here. Thank you very much.